Billions of years had passed since the oceans covered the Earth. The planet was no longer a world of fire. Now, vast expanses of water dominated the surface, an almost endless ocean, deep, dark, in constant motion. Waves rose and collapsed endlessly. Currents flowed across the entire planet. Nothing was still. Nothing was at rest. Storms crossed the skies without pause. Dense clouds swirled across the horizon. Lightning tore through the darkness, illuminating, for brief moments, a world still wild. The energy never ceased. And beneath the oceans, far from the light, far from any stability, the Earth continued to move, invisible to the eye, yet essential to everything that would come next. Beneath this vast expanse of water, the planet's interior remained extremely hot, unstable, alive, slowly pulsing beneath the surface. Massive currents of molten rock moved without rest, rising, sinking, circling, in cycles that never stopped. Like a deep breath, constant, inevitable, a silent force. Impossible to contain, this movement began to push the crust, to compress it, to bend it, to fracture it. The surface of the planet was not solid as we know it today. It was thin, fragile, and in constant transformation, breaking, reforming, and breaking again. The Earth was not static. It was alive. In some regions, something different began to happen. The crust became thicker, stronger, less dense, changing slowly, almost imperceptibly, as if the planet itself were reorganizing. And then, after countless cycles, these regions began to rise. At first, slowly, almost unnoticed. Then, more and more, until they broke through the surface, emerging above the oceans, tearing through the water, defying gravity. For the first time, Earth was no longer only water. Small landmasses began to appear, primitive islands, newborn surfaces, rocky, unstable, hot, still forming, but they were the beginning of something much greater. The first continents, the first contact between water and land, very different from the ones we know today. Smaller, fragmented, irregular, and extremely unstable. They formed, were destroyed, and formed again. Without pause, without balance, without permanence, nothing lasted. Nothing remained intact for long. Collisions began to occur. Masses of land met with violence. They crashed. They deformed. They transformed. Parts of the crust sank back into the planet's interior, consumed by heat, reabsorbed. Others were pushed upward, lifted, exposed, transformed. This cycle never stopped. A slow process, but relentless. One that would shape the surface of the Earth for billions of years. Meanwhile, above the surface, the atmosphere continued to evolve. Volcanoes released gases constantly. Without stopping, without rest, the Earth breathed through them. The oceans interacted with the newly formed rock. Water and stone met, reacted, transformed. Minerals were dissolved, carried by the currents, reorganized, recreated. Everything was connected. Everything was changing. The planet was entering a new phase, more complex, more dynamic, richer in possibilities, closer to something that had never existed before. At the boundaries between water and land, unstable and energetic zones began to form. Coastal regions, shallow margins, places where the ocean met the rock, environments in constant change, transitions, boundaries, and in the depths, far from any light, hydrothermal vents released intense heat, minerals, energy, creating unique environments, extreme, but incredibly rich, places where rare conditions came together: heat, water, minerals, energy, all at once, all interacting, without pause, without control. For the first time, the planet offered ideal settings for something new to begin, something invisible, something silent, something still fragile, but inevitable. Earth was no longer a world of fire, nor just a planet of water. Now, it had continents, solid surfaces, diverse environments, zones of interaction, regions where everything could meet. A planet in transformation, a planet preparing itself. But something was still missing, something fundamental, something that would change everything, something that had never existed before. And then, in the most unexpected places, where energy and matter met without end, where chaos created possibilities, the next chapter began, silently, without witnesses, without announcement, but with consequences that would change everything. In the next episode, we will follow the most extraordinary moment in this story, the origin of life, when matter stopped being just matter and began to live.